This particular module, we talk about reading and note taking. And if there's anything true of college, you're going to do a lot of reading and you're going to have to take a lot of notes. And the fact is that no one system works for all classes. So you need to, on your own, take the opportunity to maybe investigate the best ways that work for you. So we're going to hit a few highlights here. But what you got to understand first is this idea of a paradigm shift. Okay, and a paradigm is just a way of looking at things. And so when the smartphones came out, that was a huge paradigm shift in the economy and for businesses. We talked about this before. Many businesses didn't survive it. Many businesses came into existence. This AI, you can see that ChatGPT is going to fundamentally change work and learning in ways that I can't yet begin to predict. And even COVID almost overnight changed the way we work and the way we learn. It was a paradigm shift. Okay, so what does this have to do with the task at hand? Well, let's talk about an academic paradigm shift. So if you look at this, the old paradigm that you have is high school. Whatever you did in high school to be successful, typically it probably worked because again, high school, the bar is not very high to be able to pass courses. And so you fall into this paradigm or this way of doing things. But when you hit this inflection point, this paradigm shift where you transition to college, things will change significantly in what it takes to be successful. Now, students that don't adapt to the new or don't adopt the new paradigm, you can see that they may continue on that paradigm, but you can see it dropping off. And at some point, you'll recognize that maybe the old way isn't working. But if you still don't adapt, you're going to hit this critical point which is the last opportunity to adapt to the new learning paradigm. Otherwise, you're probably not going to be successful in the class. Okay, and students who don't change and adapt to the new environment of college typically will struggle and often are the students that drop out. So perhaps you come to college with a very good high school paradigm of studying and you just continue to do and you'll be successful. But if you find yourself struggling, then you have to adjust your paradigm in order to be successful in college. Okay. And you can see from the top slides that on the right, the Texas quarterback scoring a touchdown. Well, that just doesn't happen, right? To the left, you understand that all the hard work and effort and training that goes in to be able to have a good sports team and to be successful on the field. Well, it's no different. The grade of an A on an exam, it just doesn't magically happen, right? There is a lot of effort behind getting good grades, and it typically involves reading and note taking. Okay, so let's look at reading first. What is so hard about reading? In my live classes, students are pretty quick to talk about, well, there's a lot of it, and it's typically difficult, and in many cases, it's boring. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you can't or don't have to read it. Okay, so the first thing they talk about in the textbook is the idea of previewing. Okay, and there's an exercise in there. I won't even call out what the exercise is. It gives a really good illustration of the value of previewing. But the idea of previewing is before you go down into the weeds, you take a look, you just skim through the chapter, look at the titles, look at the headings, look at the pictures, and you get an idea of what it is you're about to learn. It provides a structure in your brain to start to put the pieces together. If you don't do that pre-structuring, and you go immediately into the weeds, you often don't know what it is that I'm reading or what is the point or what is the idea. But that little bit of previewing often will, and this example that you're going to do, exercise will really do a good job of illustrating the value of previewing, right? Then active reading. I found when I was in college that I would read and I would reread and maybe I would read again Because what would happen? It would be the reading version of highway hypnosis. I think everybody knows what highway hypnosis is. You could be driving for 20 or 30 miles. You're successfully driving the car, but you kind of come out of the hypnotic state and realize, I don't know where I am. Right? You've been driving for 30 miles, but you've been in this almost hypnotic state. Reading textbooks in college will put you into a hypnotic state. And so if you don't actively read, you're probably going to struggle with being able to read. And what you don't want to do is read the textbook multiple times. And so the idea of active reading is once you've previewed and you read a paragraph, you stop and you summarize what was the point of that paragraph. Write down the main point of the paragraph. If you have a physical text, I often would put it in the margin. And then you would read the next paragraph, stop. What was the point of that paragraph, and how did it relate to the previous paragraph? Because there's a flow, a relationship between these paragraphs. And after every paragraph, you stop. What did it tell me? And if you can't answer what was the point of the paragraph, you probably have to reread it. But it's only a paragraph, so it's easy to pay attention. And if you continue to stop, what was the point? How did it tie to the previous paragraph or paragraphs? Then it all begins to make sense. It keeps you from going into a hypnotic state. And if you do it well and you do it correctly, you're only going to read the textbook maybe just one time, which is the goal. You don't want to reread it multiple times. And so that's what this paraphrasing helps you avoid, the multiple attempts at reading the textbook. Now, you're going to watch a video on taking notes, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but notes are important because if you don't take notes, you're going to remember very little from a lecture. So it helps you engage with the material. It forces you to summarize and reformulate information that you are being told. And because of that restructuring and organization that goes on in your brain, for you to interpret what was said, it helps just reinforce what you just heard. That doesn't mean you completely understand it. That doesn't mean you don't have to study it later, but it is the brain wiring up information in such a way that you'll be able to recall it. Okay, so e-text presents a little bit of a paradigm shift over physical textbooks, but almost every e-text will give you the ability to take notes. So as you read through your e-text, here's one of the math books we use, you can create notes. Okay, things that you want to remember, things that you want to study. You could also create flashcards. You know, there are things that you simply have to remember, and a flashcard is a great way to test, do I actually remember key points? And so memory retention, is flashcards helps with active recall. Metacognition, do I really understand it? Maybe ties more to taking the notes. Okay, but you've got to understand material. You can sketch pictures, diagrams, anything that helps you recall the information. It's just a fact. You gotta learn, understand, and remember a lot of information. A lot of you probably don't have physical text anymore, but if you did, highlighting was one way that was very popular. Certainly when you had physical textbooks, but you have to do that correctly too. It helps you focus your attention on key points, but if you over highlight, then it's of no benefit because you might as well just read the entire passage again. So more is not better. But if you have a physical textbook, learn to efficiently and effectively highlight. And again, the video will explain it. And as far as taking notes, there's no one right or correct way to take notes. In the video, they'll talk about the outline method. You can see something like this, the water cycle. You know, it's very conducive to just setting up this outline type of structure. In some cases, this Cornell method is very, very effective, where on the left, the Q column are the main points. The notes on the right side kind of give you, well, okay, what is it? And then at the bottom, the summary is what ties it all together. Okay. So for some classes, this is very, very effective. Mind mapping is very good. Again, not for all classes, but certainly for some classes, because we are visual beings. And the better you can visualize something, you can remember a picture way better than you can remember words. And so if you can do an effective mind map, it is much easier to recall information and understand the relationships between information. So watch that video. The bottom line is your toolkit at home doesn't have just a hammer, right? A toolkit has a lot of different tools depending on the job. And so same with taking notes, same with reading, is one size does not fit all. You have got to develop a system that works for you to be able to effectively read and to be effectively able to take notes. Don't ever assume that a set of notes given to you by an instructor is going to be good enough. The instructor's notes is just a part of the whole picture. All the blanks get filled in with the textbook. So in the textbook reading, you'll have this C underscore T, and the question is, what is the missing letter? Is it an A? Is it cat? Is it cut? Is it caught? The point of it is the details. The missing letter is found in the textbook, but it's often not going to be in the notes of the lecture. Because in a lecture or in notes, you cannot possibly cover the material in the depth that you probably need to learn it. So don't blow off reading your textbooks. I find with e-text that students often don't read the textbooks at all in a math class. And it's very difficult to learn math if you're not looking at examples, you're not looking at explanations. Okay, and so the problem with especially math homework is when it's done in an online system, is students just go right to the homework. And in the homework, there's often show me examples and some help that will allow you to successfully complete the homework when you may not understand it at all. And students get a false sense of their preparation. So the homework should be after you reviewed the text, you reviewed your notes, and you're sure that from a metacognitive standpoint that you understand the material. Then you do your homework. But if you do your homework first, you're gonna be missing key points, and you're often not going to understand the material to the degree that you think you will. There's a discussion about notes by hand versus a computer. By far, taking notes by hand is better. You can see on the left that you can draw pictures. It's just easier to organize your thoughts in different ways when you take it by hand and not on a computer. And a personal perplexing thing for me is I will often give students practice exams. They don't count toward a grade. It's just an opportunity for students to evaluate their preparation. And half of my students skip practice exams. And the half that skip the practice exams are the students that aren't doing well. The students that do well in the math courses typically take the practice exams a couple times. Why? Because it highlights what do I understand, what do I not understand, and allows you to focus correctly. Okay, so make sure you look at the other video on notes, and I will talk to you in the next unit.